to Airbnb, whose spectacular growth abruptly upended their industries. Though they come in many varieties, platforms all have an ecosystem with the same basic structure, comprising 4 types of players. The owners of platforms control their intellectual property and governance. Providers serve as the platform's interface with users. Producers create their offerings, and consumers use those offerings. To understand how the rise of platforms is transforming competition, we need to examine how platforms differ from the conventional pipeline businesses that have dominated industry for decades. Pipeline businesses create value by controlling a linear series of activities, the classic value chain model. Inputs at one end of the chain, say materials from suppliers, undergo a series of steps that transform them into an output that's worth more, the finished product. Apple's handset business is essentially a pipeline, but combine it with the App Store, the marketplace that connects app developers and iPhone owners, and you've got a platform. As Apple demonstrates, firms needn't be only a pipeline or a platform. They can be both. While plenty of pure pipeline businesses are still highly competitive, when platforms enter the same marketplace, the platforms virtually always win. That's why pipeline giants such as Walmart, Nike, John Deere, and GE are all scrambling to incorporate platforms into their models. The players in a platform ecosystem. A platform provides the infrastructure and rules for a marketplace that brings together producers and consumers. The players in the ecosystem fill 4 main roles, but may shift rapidly from one role to another. Understanding the relationships both within and outside the ecosystem is central to platform strategy. The move from pipeline to platform involves 3 key shifts. 1. From resource control to resource orchestration. The resource-based view of competition holds that firms gain advantage by controlling scarce and valuable, ideally inimitable, assets. In a pipeline world, those include tangible assets such as mines and real estate, and intangible assets like intellectual property. With platforms, the assets that are hard to copy are the community and the resources its members own and contribute, be they rooms or cars or ideas and information. In other words, the network of producers and consumers is the chief asset. 2. From internal optimization to external interaction. Pipeline firms organize their internal labor and resources to create value by optimizing an entire chain of product activities, from materials sourcing to sales and service. Platforms create value by facilitating interactions between external producers and consumers. Because of this external orientation, they often shed even variable costs of production. The emphasis shifts from dictating processes to persuading participants, and ecosystem governance becomes an essential skill. 3. From a focus on customer value to a focus on ecosystem value. Pipelines seek to maximize the lifetime value of individual customers of products and services, who, in effect, sit at the end of a linear process. By contrast, platforms seek to maximize the total value of an expanding ecosystem in a circular, iterative, feedback-driven process. Sometimes that requires subsidizing one type of consumer in order to attract another type. These 3 shifts make clear that competition is more complicated and dynamic in a platform world. The competitive forces described by Michael Porter, the threat of new entrants and substitute products or services, the bargaining power of customers and suppliers, and the intensity of competitive rivalry still apply. But on platforms, these forces behave differently, and new factors come into play. To manage them, executives must pay close attention to the interaction on the platform, participants' access, and new performance metrics. We'll examine each of these in turn. But first, let's look more closely at network effects, the driving force behind every successful platform. The power of network effects. The engine of the industrial economy was, and remains, supply-side economies of scale. Massive fixed costs and low marginal costs means that firms achieving higher sales volume than their competitors have a lower average cost of doing business. That allows them to reduce prices, which increases volume further, which permits more price cuts. A virtuous feedback loop that produces monopolies. Supply economics gave us Carnegie Steel, Edison Electric, which became GE, Rockefeller's Standard...